Hey guys, what's going on? It's Javier, and today I wanted to share with you a short stretching sequence that I've been using to hopefully work on building up my front split. So it's just a sequence of 3 stretches. The first one I just call a seated glute stretch with a spinal twist. Now, this one, basically all you're doing is crossing one leg over the other, and then you're hugging the knee into the chest. And as you're maintaining that position, what you want to do is try to come up as upright as you can so that any roundness in the lower back you're trying to turn into more of an arch. And that arching motion is going to increase the stretch on the glute muscles. And then once you've had enough of that stretch, you can go ahead and use the back of your arm to leverage against your thigh and get a nice big twist through the spine, turning the head and neck also. You might feel a few pops in the back when you're doing this motion. That's totally normal, but obviously don't push into any type of pain when you're doing this one. Be a little bit conservative when you're doing that twisting motion. Now, if you're somebody who's super tight in the hips, it might be difficult for you to even get into this position. So if that's the case, what I would recommend is sitting up on top of a cushion or some yoga blocks, something that's going to elevate you about 4 to 6 inches high, so you'll have an easier time bringing the foot across the thigh to get into that setup position. Otherwise, your back is going to be too rounded and you're just going to tire yourself out instead of actually feeling the stretch in the glute where you should be feeling it. So next up is the lunge quad stretch, and this is primarily going to be targeting the quad and the hip flexor, but you also get a bit of a stretch through the adductor on the front leg. So with this one, you're just going to start in a deep lunge position, and then you're going to go ahead and grab the back foot with either hand. I actually use both hands to grab the foot in this stretch to hit different angles. Now, if it's really a struggle to even get a hold of the foot, either you can have a stretching partner actually help you to lift your foot up so you can grab a hold of it, or you can attach a strap around the top of the foot so that you can hold on to the strap and pull it over your shoulder so that you can maintain the stretch without actually having to put the hand on the foot. Even if you are flexible enough to grab the foot on your own, you can use the strap, and that's a good variation. So with this one, what you'll notice is that when you shift the hips left and right, you're going to feel the stretch in a little bit different positions and different lines going through the muscle. So definitely take some time to figure out where your tightest areas are. You might find that having your shoulders squared up so that they're facing forward is the tightest position. But on the other hand, sometimes it may be more so with the shoulders open. So you're targeting actually the adductor a bit more from the leg that's on the ground. This stretch is especially helpful if you tend to get low back pain from sitting too much at work or on your commute, because what happens is the hip flexors and the quads are going to tend to pull the low back into an excessive arch, which is going to put a lot of compression on that lumbar spine. So when you loosen up these areas, when you first stand up, you're going to feel a lot like you can move the hips a lot more freely, and there's going to be a lot of tension released from the low back. So I highly recommend this one if you have been sitting all day and you want to release some of that tension. Lastly here, I'm moving into a lunge hamstring stretch, and this stretches the hamstring from a bent knee position, which is good because that targets the origin of the hamstring, so where the hamstring originates at the hip, as opposed to putting most of the stress behind the knee. So although both bent knee and straight leg stretches are good and useful, for me, I find that I struggle more so in gaining range of motion at the hip. So this shows up in certain movements like, let's say, barbell Romanian deadlifts or good mornings. Being able to loosen up this area will give me more range of motion in those movements, and it will allow to keep my lower back in a stronger position. And it's also the area where I just feel like the muscle is a lot more dense, at least for me. And the only way I can really get into that is if I start with the knee bent, I find my stress position, and then I gradually start to straighten out the knee. But for you, it might be the opposite. So it's really good to experiment with doing for muscle groups that cross more than one joint. Sometimes start with the leg straight, sometimes start with the leg bent, and see which one allows you to progress more effectively. Now, while doing this stretch, I was actually including some contract and relax isometrics. So what I mean by that is, first I find a stress position where I feel a good amount of tension, but it's not too extreme. Then I hold an isometric contraction, so I'm not actually moving, but I try to do a leg curl type motion with that front leg. So I'm tensing up the hamstring, and then I take a breath out, relax, and then I try to deepen the stretch a little bit more, and then I just repeat the sequence. So it could be something where you hold an isometric for 10 or 20 seconds, or you could just hold it for a couple seconds at a time and move through the stretch a little bit more quickly. It kind of just depends on how much time you're dedicating to the stretch, and just after doing some experimenting, figuring out which sort of sequence works better for you. So that's all there is to it. I encourage you to give it a shot, but don't be afraid to experiment and try your own variations, and let me know how it works out for you. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.